The Atlanta Hawks early in the season had all the Trae Young drama with him being basically out for a lot of the portion of the year that he was with the Hawks, and the team basically starting off slow despite having somewhat high expectations due to their offseason acquisitions, where many had this team coming into the year as like a top 5, top 6 team in the Eastern Conference. And it started off horrible because through the first 35 games, they were 16 and 19, and now here we are. It's April. We're heading into the playoffs real soon. And the Hawks are 18 and 3 in their last 21 games, sitting at 45 and 34 with a chance to finish in the top 6 in the Eastern Conference. Mind you, this is not the same Hawks team that came into the season with the high expectations. They had major roster turnover during the trade deadline period. They traded away their franchise player in Trae Young, and they traded away multiple of those offseason acquisitions that many people loved at the time. So you may be wondering, how in the world did the Atlanta Hawks turn their season around? And to that, my main answer would be Jalen Johnson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. And look, shout out to the other guys on this team as well, because they've played really well, really good basketball, but these two guys have been at a different level. In the case of Jalen Johnson, he had been on this trajectory for the past couple of years now. You saw it during some stretches where Trae Young was out, and he put up some great numbers. He also had some games where even when Trae Young played, he was hooping. And you saw, like, look, this guy might really be the franchise player despite Trae Young being there. Because it's just, you saw him on the floor, you were like, okay, this guy is way better than we thought coming into his career when he got drafted in the late first round. And so far, he's been sensational this year. He's the first time All Star. He's averaging almost 23, 10, and 8. And he has filled that role of being their franchise guy pretty well so far. As for Nickeil Alexander Walker, he is one of the only offseason acquisitions still around. And he has been just almost perfect, almost flawless in his first season as a Hawk. He's putting up a career high 21 points per game on super efficiency from beyond the arc. He's been a really good athletic wing defender for this team, and this Hawks team overall is just bigger and more athletic than they were in previous years, and it's paid major dividends and given them a ton of success. Statistically, they're an average offensive group, but they've become a top 10 defensive unit in terms of offensive and defensive rating. They also shoot the basketball from three better than just about almost anyone in the league right now. They're fifth in 3-point percentage, and they shoot it on high volume. It's not like one of those teams that is in the top 4 or top 5 in 3-point percentage, and you look at their attempts and they're getting up, the least amount in the league. They get their shots up. They do have some issues right now, though, even though they've been playing really good basketball. And one of those is on the season overall, they're not a great rebounding team. And that's always a huge factor for me in playoff success because, you can't allow extra possessions. You just can't allow those things. And if they're not going to hit the glass consistently, it's going to be really hard for them to make it out of the first round. They also don't really get to the line a ton. And that hurts because those are easy points that you can generate, and they don't really get to those a lot. So those are two issues I could see being a bit of a problem because you're going to rely on shot making, and against good defensive units, they're not always going to be clean looks. They're going to be tough shots. And do they have enough tough shot makers to, pull through a 7-game series against one of these teams that's, New York, a Cleveland, or a Boston, or a Detroit? I don't know, but I think they can be a threat. I definitely do. I think the most likely, like threat wise, if I had to say threat level to one of these teams, I think it's New York or Cleveland. I think Detroit or Boston would give them some trouble. I think they wouldn't make it out or even have a real chance of making it out versus one of those teams. There's also a super real possibility that they're in the play-in or even end up missing the playoffs as a whole because if they lose in the play-in, obviously you're out. But I think, the result of missing the play-in or missing the playoffs and or facing Detroit or Boston, which would be really, trouble for them. I wouldn't like those odds, but I do think they're a threat to one of these like New York, Cleveland type of teams. Nonetheless, this Hawks season, as wild as it's been a major success for them. It has been a major success, and it's crazy to think about because who would have thought coming into the year, obviously there was concerns with like Porzingis, and some people were like, oh, look, if this guy's healthy, this team could be really good. But if he's not going to be healthy, this team's going to be, kind of shaky. And then Trae Young was hurt, and it was like, oh, Trae's hurt, Porzingis is out, this team's in trouble. For them to basically like salary dump Trae Young and, you know, still be surviving and playing some of their best basketball without him, and, you move off him for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, and then you trade Kristaps Porzingis for Jonathan Kuminga, who is still young. He's a wing. He's athletic. He's still got some potential, some upside. I don't see him as like a superstar type of player or anything like that, but he can definitely be a contributor to a winning team, in my opinion. And you add this all up with Nickeil Alexander-Walker being basically the most improved player this season and one of the best contracts in the sport, or one of the best signings in the offseason. It's been a really good season for the Hawks, and I'm just interested to see A, how can they capitalize off this momentum heading into the postseason? And B, even if they get, taken out of there real early, they lose in the first round or they lose in the play-in, I'm interested to see how can they use this momentum from this season and make some moves. Let's see, they still got some pieces to flip around here. If they can, use some of that and get some, some good talent in here with some of these guys like Jalen Johnson, Alexander Walker, etc., this could be an interesting team in the Eastern Conference next season for a full 82. I could definitely see this team finishing in a top 5, top 6 easily if they bring in some better talent, or some, I want to say better because I feel like I'm discrediting the guys they have, but if they bring in some higher tier talent on this team with the guys that they have, it could make for a really fun 82 game full season of Atlanta Hawks basketball next season. Anyways, that's going to do it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been the checkup, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.